Hello everyone, welcome to Conversations with Experts. I'm Hem. Today, me and my guest are going to be having a chat about spiritual awakening. If you have questions around spiritual awakening or you're going through something like a dark night of the soul, this is definitely the episode for you. My guest and I go through lots of wisdom with regard to what you may be feeling and how you may be experiencing different things. Now, because both of us have been through very similar situations, we're able in this interview to give you different frameworks of how it might feel for you. We're all individuals, and I'm hoping in this interview you can gain some clarity if you're going through something like this. So without further ado, let's go to our episode. Hello everyone, welcome to Self-Love, Self-Care Conversations with Experts. Today my guest on the show is Gemma Lonsdale. Gemma is an international psychic medium, clairvoyant life coach, speaker, host of the Happy Psychic podcast, as well as being a 2-time breast cancer survivor. So hello, Gemma. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. Hi, everybody.
Hello, you are so welcome. So Gemma, I want to know a little bit. First question, this is going to be, what I want to do is tell you all first, viewers, today's conversation is going to be more of a chat between me and Gemma. And I love the idea that we're Hem and Gem. So I thought it was kind of cool. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat and we're going to talk about spiritual stuff and psychic stuff. And we're going to share our experience with you. But I would like to ask you one question, Gemma. How did you end up on this psychic journey? How did you end up within the whole clairvoyant realm and how did it happen for you?
Okay, that's a very good question. So I'd experienced quite a bit of trauma in a short space of time. Like, me and my husband had just separated and I had found out that I had breast cancer. I was moving out of the family home, but it really, what I'd started to realize was that I was really dissatisfied with my life. And I'd started to ask all of those deep soul searching questions of, why is my marriage not worked? Why am I unhappy? Why am I not enjoying my job? Because I had such a great job. I had everything that I wanted materially, but I still just wasn't feeling like that satisfaction. And that sort of spurred me on to a bit of a spiritual awakening. And whenever I think back to times as a child, whenever I was growing up and stuff, like, I did know stuff. There was things that I knew that I shouldn't have really known. But at the same time, I just didn't have an awareness that I was psychic or medium. I didn't have an awareness of that capability. But it was through that trauma and that soul searching, and I started to get all these synchronicities, and it was like, the universe is trying to talk to me. I knew something was happening, but it was like I instinctively knew that it was a spiritual awakening that I was having. And then I'm here today.
That's amazing. I really love it because it's so true. And because I was on Gemma's podcast, I had an interview with her. And it's very similar with me. There were so many things that awakened to me. It was something interesting you just said. When you said that you had everything, because I did as well, and you wasn't happy. And I didn't understand. A lot of me kept saying, well, I don't get it. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I had the money I needed. I had the home. I had on paper, I had it all. But yeah, very much like you, I felt exactly the same. And there was so much trauma once I realized what trauma was. And I suppose if it's not physical, because mine was mental and emotional, you don't always know that you're being guided, because what you've just said is about guidance, isn't it? You're being opened up to this new world that you haven't quite explored yet. And so for me, it was a case of, I always knew, I'll be honest, for me, I knew since I was a child, I knew I was different. I knew, like you said, I knew things I shouldn't know. Like, why do I know this? This doesn't make any sense. But one of the things that I think came out of, for me, was always a case of, I can run away from this and hide from it, because that was how my world was, or I could face up to it. And did that kind of happen with you? Or was it more of a, because you said it was such a lovely journey, did you get that?
It definitely wasn't a lovely journey. I think, there was parts of it were, and there's parts of it that I absolutely would not change for the world. I wouldn't change any of it for the world, but there was parts of it that were really, really hard. And, whenever I was having I went through like a dark night of the soul. And whenever I was going through that, I was distraught. I was really struggling to cope. I had quit my job. I just broke down in tears one day to my boss, and I was just like, I don't know what's happening. I'm really unhappy here. I'm so sorry, but I need to leave. And he was like, okay, I completely understand. And I had no idea even what I was going to do about money or anything like that. And I thought it was maybe that job. Maybe it was that job that I didn't like. So I went and I got myself another job, doing the same as what I had done. I was in business development. I was a sales manager in tech. And I went and I got another job doing a similar thing with a different tech company. It was a startup, not far from where I live. And I realized that I wasn't fitting in. And I think because I'd started to spiritually waken up a little bit, and I was getting dizzy, I was having like the ringing in the ears, and I started to feel a bit more alienated from the people that I had worked with, because I realized I was different, and people didn't really want to hear about the spiritual stuff. They wanted to hear about what car you had, or what you did at the weekend. Were you drunk? Did you have a hangover? Like, they didn't want to know about my ear ringing and the synchronicities that I'd seen that morning as I come into work. And I was finding that I was just coming home and crying, and it really did feel like a depression. And I can remember asking myself, like, am I depressed? Like, am I, clinically depressed? Because I was coming home, talking to my wall and just crying and asking myself all of these questions about life and the meaning of my life, where my life is going, what changes I needed to make. But even earlier on in my journey, whenever I'd first realized that I wasn't happy, and I really hadn't been happy for a few years. And of course, I blamed my husband, because that's what I did. It's his fault, or, it's our relationship isn't working, because he's not a good fit for me. But the reality was that it was me. I wasn't a good fit for me. Like, I wasn't a good fit for me. So no matter leaving my relationship, leaving my marriage, leaving my job, this problem was still there, because I was everywhere I went. I couldn't run away from myself. So, it's been very, very hard, but yet so amazing. And as hard as it was, I wouldn't change it for the world, because sometimes we need to hit rock bottom in order to get to where we need to go. We need those hard times. We need to go through the trauma and the dark times in order to peel that stuff away. And now I've completely forgotten what question you actually asked me, because I've started to I've just started to go off on a tangent.
It's absolutely fine, because I love what you said, because because I always knew I was different anyway. So it's interesting having it from your perspective, because for you, you grew into it. So you've actually exposed how it feels for people out in the world. Because I always knew I was different. I always knew there was something about me.
I always knew that I was different, but I didn't really have the awareness that I was psychically or mediumshiply, gifted. That wasn't what was on my mind, but I always did feel different. And I can remember even when I was in my early 20s, I used to just think to myself, I am going to do something amazing someday. I had no idea what it was, but I just felt it. And
I love it.
Yeah. And I did find that, as a child growing up and teenager, probably early 20s, I was very in tune with my intuition. But as I found myself getting more embedded into the material world, climbing the corporate ladder, driving the brand new BMW, I think I did lose my intuition a little bit. I wasn't as in tune with my intuition as what I used to be. And I think when I reflect back, that's quite an eye-opener for me as well, that the more greedy I got and the more ambitious when it comes to career and earning potential, the less I was in touch with myself and spirit.
That's amazing, because that's so true, right? They're not in tune with each other.
Yeah.
When we are striving to meet the expectations of a society that works on such a basic, capitalist sense, a monetary sense, then the spiritual acumen, the ability of hearing ourselves changes, because we're listening on a different level. We're listening on a mind level rather than on a soul level, right?
Yeah.
So I did like when you said I wasn't a good fit for me. I really like that. I liked that a lot. And the reason I liked it was because that is, I think that's like a soundbite. That's a key, a secret key. If you're feeling uncomfortable in your own skin, or you're feeling uncomfortable in other people's presence, it's because you're not looking within. And I think I'm hoping that's what you meant, Gemma, because that's how I kind of word it.
No, it is. It's exactly, that's exactly what I meant.
So it's like being lost in yourself. And you even said you felt alienated around people. And that would become, that's a product of feeling that you don't know your insides and not being a good fit for yourself. So I really do like that. I like that a lot, because that whole alienation thing, I felt it so phenomenally. Everywhere I went, I thought, he doesn't like me and she doesn't like me and they don't like me. But it wasn't that. It was because probably I didn't like me, but also I didn't know me. And I also wasn't a good fit for me. I wasn't me. So I love that. I love that. And I think the other stuff that you said as well, all the other parts in the dark night of the soul, they are the things spiritually we're going to all awaken to. And that's how it comes to pass. And that's such a key message. And I absolutely love that. So when you were on this, like, because you were saying, like, you were like said it was my husband, or it was must be this, or it must be that. How did you get yourself from the space where you were moving from that blame to that gain, the gain of your spiritual insight? Because that's quite a tricky one.
Yeah, well, I had initially I went for Reiki, and it was my first Reiki treatment. And it was the girl that did my eyelash extensions at the time, because I was very into, you know, eyelash extensions, lip fillers, things like that. And she had suggested that I go for Reiki. She loved it. She recommended this girl. I went to her. Wasn't really sure if it was my thing at the time. You know, I was still very, very embedded in the corporate world. And I can remember coming home from that crying. I cried for like a full day afterwards. And I just kept thinking life coaching. And I felt very drawn to being a life coach, but I didn't really want to. I was very resistant at that point, because I didn't want to change my life. I didn't want to drop my salary. I didn't want to have to lose my car. And I resisted for a little while, and then Spirit eventually dragged me kicking and screaming. And I really did find it a struggle to fully embrace the spiritual side of me. But because I was going through this trauma and this dark night of the soul, and trying to figure out where I fit in the world, because I didn't feel like I belonged in the corporate world, I ended up, when COVID hit, I ended up losing my job. The company closed their office here. They let like quite a few of us go. And I ended up not working. It was COVID. A lot of people weren't hiring. And it sort of opened the door to me to really embrace the spiritual path more. And that's how it all happened. And I realized that was probably orchestrated by Spirit, because they knew that I would have been so reluctant to let go of the corporate world and my material life, that actually they just had to pull the rug from under my feet, from under my feet somehow. So it was Spirit really forced my hand, or the universe really forced my hand in a way, and made it much, much easier to embrace. But even then, I still felt, I don't know, when people have known you your whole life, and they know a specific version of you, they know the greedy, ambitious, hard-nosed person. So all of a sudden to be coming out and, with tarot cards and crystals and it's hard for people to take, especially those who are close to you.
Yeah.
And I really tried to, that was a big, big adjustment for me. And I was trying to hide that side of me away. And I had my two separate Instagram accounts. I had my personal one, but then I had my one for the business. But I was very, very afraid to put my name to it, my face to it. I was like a closet psychic, really. I was like, still, I was in the closet. And there was one day that I posted, I think I was putting out a reading, and I posted it on my own page by mistake. And I was like, well, the cat's out of the bag now. So again, I think that was probably a shove from Spirit to, because I just can't understand how I actually made that mistake. How did I put it? I was so careful. But so it was little things like that just pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit, just bit by bit by bit, until I really just fully embraced it and was open, with who I was. as a person. So there was I suppose there was that like adjustment between me embracing myself and then letting the world see the authentic me. And part of it, I think, for me was learning that actually I don't need the external validation. That was the old me. I need to validate myself. And it doesn't matter, even if my parents think that I'm a bit woo-woo, you know, if they're concerned for my mental health, it doesn't matter. It just matters that I am being authentic to me. And I have to admit, from I went down that road, I haven't looked back.
I love that. I love that so much. It's so interesting because, like I say, I didn't have that because I always knew I was a bit different. I don't know. I think I did say it in your podcast. I got my first tarot cards when I was like 11 years old.
Yeah.
So I knew because I loved them, you know, and I loved all this stuff, right? And I even tried, I still haven't quite got there with astrology, but I was learning astrology on my own because I was so interested in stuff like that. And I do remember a friend of mine saying, this is the beginning of a journey for you. And I thought, yeah, whatever. But they were completely right. It's interesting what you said about 2020, because the angels tell me little, no, not little really, often. They say 2020 was the great awakening. It forced those of us who had these gifts to go, okay, I'll come. Even if we were resistant before, it was almost like 2020 gave us that space to realize that, like you said, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks of us. It doesn't matter how anyone's seeing us. If we have this within us, and I believe that everyone's psychic anyway, whether people want to believe in me or not, you believe what you want, that's up to you. That's my belief, right? You know, and I do think that we all have this intuitive spark. We all have this sixth sense that we can use. You know, I know how, because you were saying about kicking and screaming, and you said about the spiritual closet, which I was in as well. So I was actually known for what I did, and I was still in the closet hiding, because the truth is, what you're really speaking about is how we hide our true, authentic selves. And how so many of us are so afraid to say, look, this is who I am. Like it or lump it or take it or leave it, you know, just deal with it. But often we're so busy attempting, as you said, to fit into a world that doesn't fit us. And I love that about what you'd said, because you were being one person while inside you were screaming out saying, I'm actually this person, can I come out? Whereas your values could never come out in the corporate world. They weren't going to come out. You're right. I mean, I've done lots of things in my time, and probably teaching was my most holistic. So I was a primary school teacher. Now in primary school teaching, I could pretty much take that and could bring spiritual into that to some degree. However, even with that, it's still got so many regs around it, and it's still got so much rules around it, so that it is very hard as people who are very, very spiritual to fit into those spaces. It's like being a square peg and trying to fit into a round hole. And that's kind of what you were saying. I mean, I love the fact that you had all that, but you knew that underneath, even though you had it, that it wasn't that keeps us happy. So where would you say joy lies for people? What would you think joy would be? What would your thing be, your advice be around joy? What would you say?
Around joy, like doing whatever your soul calls out to you for, you know, whatever your heart is drawing you towards, that's where the joy is going to be found. That is definitely, without doubt, where the joy is going to be found. You will never be happy trying to please other people.
You know, true.
You will find your joy and your happiness whenever you please yourself and you really do what you want to do. And I think that sometimes we can be deceived and we think that we're doing what we want to do, but the reality is that no, we're still trying to fit in with a societal norm. We're trying to conform to the expectations of what the world expects from us. You know, and even with family members and things like that, you know, we can bend over backwards trying to conform, but we'll never be happy doing it. You know, you will always be most happy whenever you are, you know, whatever your heart is calling out to you, follow that and you will be elated.
That's beautiful. I love that. Follow your heart, because you know I'm all about self-love, and it's all about the heart. I think it is all about the heart, and it's finding your internal reference system, which is yours, not other. What you said is so true. So many people do not use their own internal reference system. They use other people's. Well, to be fair, I mean, I have to be fair when I say this. I mean, we are so conditioned and programmed to follow a referencing system that isn't ours and has never, ever belonged to us. So many of us fight, and we're kind of clawing our way out. In a way, Gemma, that's what you were talking about, really. You had to claw your way out of a world that wasn't right for you. And I would say it wasn't sophisticated enough for you, actually. Because when you talk about what you do, you light up. So you've stepped into that excellence, you stepped into that truth of who you really, really are. So imagine being that, and most of you viewers out there, and many of us have struggled with who we really, really are. And I'd say, like, jump feet first into that. If you want to find out anything, always ask yourself. It's never going to be anybody else, ever. No matter how hard we all try to fit into a society that doesn't allow us to fit in. It's that thing, you'll never be good enough for it.
Exactly.
You have to be good enough for yourself, don't you? So you mentioned that you were, when you went through all the stuff with your life and with the things that had to crumble, and you went through your dark night of the soul, right? You mentioned that. What kind of advice, or maybe a piece of wisdom, would you give to people watching about how to cope with the dark night of the soul?
Okay, that's a really interesting one. My one piece of advice is not to try and run away from it. You have to sit with those emotions, and it's so uncomfortable. All of these emotions coming up, we don't like to feel. We don't like to feel those, especially those repressed emotions that are causing us great discomfort when they come to the surface. Our natural response is to try and distance ourselves from them, but the best thing that you can do is to just sit with them, let your body feel, let your thought process run, and just let things come out. They have to come out. The things have to come out. Those emotions have to come up in order for things to get better, and to just stick with it. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It will not last forever. It's a short period in your life, a minuscule period, and just be kind to yourself. Shut yourself away if you have to, if you can. I was lucky that I was co-parenting my daughter, so I was able to have like a few days every week where, yes, I might have had to go to work, but I didn't have to think of anything after that. So I was quite content to just come home, sit and cry, and work through everything, talk to my wall. And it was very therapeutic, but you have to sit with those emotions, let them come up. You're only going to prolong it if you try to repress them. And then eventually things will get better and things will improve. And I can guarantee you that the person that comes out the other side of that will be a much better version. Not that you're already not enough. You are enough. But we're always seeking to improve. And if we focus our improvement on ourselves and our spiritual journey, rather than, focusing on climbing up that corporate ladder, we would be so much more happier with our lives. Much happier. Yeah,
I love that.
And you mentioned actually before, just before we went on to this topic, you had mentioned something else, and I thought it was great, but I don't know if I can remember now. This is where I should have had a pen and a piece of paper to write some notes, because it was such a good point, and I wanted to go back to it, but I can't remember. So if it comes back, I'll chip in. But yeah.
Right, well, it's interesting your take on the dark night of the soul, because for me, I'll be truthful. I'm going to put my hands up to this, right? I put my hands up to it. I did not know what was happening. I really didn't. I did not know that I was hitting the ground. I didn't really recognize. Mine was so deep and so strong, and it lasted so long. Like when you said it quick, mine was not. It lasted a really long time, and I felt like I literally, that horrible sound of your nail dragging on a board or something. I felt like that was happening. Like every day I woke up and that sound was in my ears, and I thought, when's this going to stop? I really, really did. For myself, it took a long time, but what it was for me, and it's like you were saying, sitting with the feelings, but for me, I had to admit it. I had to actually say, there is something up here. There is something not working here. Because what I kept doing was I kept looking around the problem and trying to solve it. So I kept trying to fix it. If I could fix this, then I won't be feeling like this. Or if I could fix it, that grating would stop, and that screaming, because it was almost like I was screaming, the internal screaming would stop. And I think for myself, and there may be people like myself that are out there who know that they have these gifts. So if you do have them, but you haven't really stepped right into them, I would say that it's probably that's doing your head in, really. It's probably that's shaking the bag, because we're all so different. And I love the fact that we're talking about this, because we've got different experiences. And I think that's so important to remember and recognize that we all face it in a different way. And I guess the other one I would say with regard to the dark night of the soul would be, if you really are stuck, to get it out of your head, to sort of talk to people about it or write about it, or, you know, it doesn't matter how you do it, but find a way to get it out of your system, because while it stays in your system, it's really hard to recognize, because we find, I don't know, I think we all do this. I think this is just a human thing. It's really hard to see ourselves, no matter how deep a look we take. Anyway, my lovely, we're at the exciting questions now. Well, I think they're the exciting questions. The fun questions. Gemma, can you tell me a spiritual, non-fiction and fiction book that you would recommend to our viewers today?
Behind me, sorry, I'm not talking into my microphone. You know what? The Alchemist, definitely, without a doubt, definitely have to read that. I think what the book is called, it's not in that shelf. I was looking for it. It was Lisa Williams. She was a medium. She channeled the book. And there was so much information in it about the afterlife. And I'm just going to try and Google, actually.
I was going to say, don't worry, tell me, we could add it. So Lisa Williams
book. Oh, Life Among the Dead. Survival of the Soul. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Survival of the Soul by Lisa Williams. However, I've also got another suggestion. Okay, so there was a friend of mine that actually, it's about past life regression, and the author, he was just it like absolutely changed my life. But it was Dr. Brian Wise.
I've read that as well.
Masters.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book.
Oh, that was phenomenal. I have read that. I read all of his books now, actually, and then I also read a lot of Dolores Cannon. I'm not through all of her books yet, but again, she is a past life regressionist, but she worked a lot with spirit who came through during her sessions and give her a lot of knowledge, and it's just incredible. And actually, I really enjoy, because I get a lot of knowledge from spirit. This is part of my path, is going to be teaching people about the afterlife and spirituality. So I get quite a lot of information from spirit directly about what it's like over there, how it works with, us learning our lessons, how the life contract works, all of this. And I really love how that can connect into the work that Dolores Cannon did, for example. So I went from struggling there to come up with any recommendations to be like overloading everybody. So there, you're shopping. But
it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting, because I'd always recommend The Alchemist. I love that book, and I tend to bring it up myself. But the Dolores Cannon one, it's really interesting that you brought her up. I've never read anything of hers. I've watched one YouTube thing sometime at some point. And it's really interesting, because someone I know is reading one of her books at the moment and saying to me, why don't you read this? And I was like, I don't know about Dolores Cannon. And now you've said it. And it's such an indicator that they're saying, read the book.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Okay, what about just a normal fiction?
Before you start onto that, just with Dolores Cannon, whenever I first read her, like one of her books, or started watching some information about her, like I think it was probably one of her YouTube videos, one of the seminars that she did, and I was at the start of my journey, and I thought, I'm not really sure this is for me, this is a bit far-fetched. But now I'm further along my journey, my truth has changed. And actually, there's a lot more information that she says that resonates with me. And I just think that it's important to remember that whenever we're absorbing knowledge, that if it doesn't resonate with us at that time, actually that could change in the future. So don't completely write it off. Remain curious, I guess I would say to people. Just be curious and just, keep asking questions and be open to the possibility that actually it might make more sense to you further down the line.
Yeah. So what about a fiction book? Just a normal bog standard fiction book?
Does it have to be spiritual?
No, I don't want it to be spiritual. I want to know what other kind of books you read. If you don't, then it's fine. Just say
no. I love reading. One of the books actually that actually really, really enjoyed, and it's stuck with me for quite a long time, and it's called Unraveling Oliver by a lady called Liz Nugent. Now, I read this book years ago, and it was just, I don't know, it was just a mind bender, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was a bit dark, but I loved it. I really, really enjoyed that book, so I would definitely recommend that.
Thank you. Anyway, Gemma,
Yeah.
we are at the end of our interview. Thank you so much for joining us this time on Self-Love, Self-Care Conversations with Experts.
Thank you
Gemma,
very much.
Can you tell my viewers where they can find you if they're interested in what you do?
Yeah, so it's Gemma with a G, gemmalonsdale.guru, and that is on the web. So that's my website, gemmalonsdale.guru. And then you can also find me on TikTok and Instagram, and it is Gemma Lonsdale Guru. And make sure you go to the right one, because there are quite a few fraudsters out there at the minute. So I've got Gemma Lonsdale Guru 1, Gemma Lonsdale Guru 2. There's only one Gemma Lonsdale Guru. So just make sure that you're going to the right one.
Thank you so much, sweetie. Thank you so much. Everyone,
Thank
you know
you.
where you can find me. I'm at www.selfloveselfcaresystem.com. I'm here for readings and anything else you want me for. I'm always here for advice for you and always here for any help that you need. This has been an amazing episode. Thank you so much, Gemma. Thank you for your time and being here with us today. Hello. Okay. Thank you so much for watching the interview with me and Gemma Lonsdale. I hope that you really enjoyed it. If you're interested in my guest, you can find all her handles down in the notes. Also, if you've enjoyed it and you've got to this stage, please like maybe and hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I'd love to have you on board as part of the community. There are lots of things coming up. Now, if you are interested, please look on my website. I run healings, I do healings, I offer healings, and I also offer readings. If you'd like a reading with me, I'm an angel connector, and I connect on a deep level, and I'm able to give you wisdom through the angel community. They give me messages to give to you to help you with your further development. Also, if you're interested in readings, next Wednesday on the 7th of September, my live is on my Facebook Angel page, and that's Self-Love Self-Care Angel System. You can go on there and you can come on there live. It's at 1 p.m. So if you are interested in joining me, please take a moment out of your day and come and join live. You can write a comment in the comments. And if you want a reading, you can also say, please pull me a card. Just so you know, if you are going to be watching that, I have dyslexia. So if you are going to write, please pull me a card, put it right at the beginning of your sentence, because I tend to miss it if it's further towards the end, because of the fact that I can't physically focus on that many words at once while I'm also talking. Anyway, my lovelies, thank you so much for watching the episode. I hope it's brought you some clarity for those of you who are going through spiritual awakening and do need to find some clarity. Also, on that note, if you are going through a spiritual awakening and you are struggling, please feel free to come work with me. I can help you with coaching to get through the hurdles that you're facing. I have been doing this for a very long time, since I was 11 years old. As I said in the interview, I have a wealth of experience behind me, and I can help you if you're struggling. Anyway, my lovelies, take care. Have a lovely, lovely rest of the week, month, year, whatever. Whenever I see you next, I'll be there with you. Take care of yourselves. Namaste, and I will speak to you soon. Lots of love. Bye.